It feels like my channel is like a store I've built, where I've stocked the shelves, then put up the open sign. Then the algorithm can randomly put a cover over my store sign and make it so no one finds it. I don't know why this happens or what to do about it. Let's fix that. Howdy everyone, Nate here. I want to set the stage with 3 things that put you in YouTube algorithm jail, as well as the 3 things that I see consistently get you and other YouTube channels out of algorithm jail permanently, as long as you keep doing them. All right, let's do this. The YouTube algorithm, as I understand it, has 2 primary goals. The first is to give people an enjoyable experience for the entirety of their time on the platform. And the second is to keep people on the platform as long as possible. And this is done by continuing that satisfying experience for an audience member as long as possible. Now, how exactly does the algorithm accomplish that? I have another video on this, much more in depth, planned for the future. But the things we need to get for this video and getting out of algorithm jail are twofold. One, the algorithm attempts to predict what the audience will enjoy watching before they even watch it. Because once they've predicted that, they will give impressions of your content to an audience member that it thinks might be a fit for it, with the purpose of giving that audience member, one by one, any person that is currently on the YouTube platform, the chance to experience that piece of content or not to experience it. So that second, based on that audience member's reaction or interaction with your content at scale, meaning a whole bunch of individual audience members, how they react as a whole, the algorithm will rank and rate your content to decide what they're going to do with it next, which, if it performs well, will lead to further testing and spread, and if it doesn't perform well, will lead to algorithm jail. Which leads us to this, the 3 major factors that I have found that put your content and your channel into YouTube algorithm jail. Number 1 is this. If you, yes, we're pretending this is you here, if your content isn't obviously better than the other content out there, you will forever struggle to spread. In fact, let's do a mini quiz to ask yourself these questions to see if your content is too obscure. Is your video or the sequence of videos that you're publishing on your channel better than what is already out there on YouTube? Do people know that it is? If you compare your video to a video that's already there, that's in your same niche on YouTube, how obvious would it be to a neutral third party that it is actually better? And the keyword here was chosen very intentionally, and that is this: obvious. To get out of this type of YouTube algorithm jail, here's what I want you to do. When you look at any given piece of content and you compare it to what is already on YouTube, can you immediately list out 3 or more things that make it obviously better? Could someone who isn't you or who had never seen your content before also potentially do the same? And another question you could ask yourself is, if Nate were to look at this piece of content, what would he say? All right, we need to define here what better would even mean and how you make it more obvious. Here's what I'd be looking for. Is this piece of content we're reviewing, or the content as a whole on your channel, easier to understand? Is it funnier? Does it take a fresh take on a common approach already existing on the platform? Is it more real and authentic than other videos out there? We could keep going. The major difference we need to address here is that while we're pursuing all of this obviously better content here, we also need to make sure that it does meet at least 80% of the expectations of the already existing audience. This comes up a lot when people will come to me and say, well, Nate, I have this channel where I'm doing something that's never been done before. It's totally original, and it's totally fresh and new. Why is nobody liking it? And 9 times out of 10, I'll look at that channel and say, do people actually know that they want this? Which is why I chose this word very intentionally. If it's obvious to an audience that yours is better, your channel will grow. But they have to be aware that they even want it in the first place, meaning the ideas and the delivery of your content has to be done at least in a way that touches base with their current expectations. Let me give you an example of an audience member's channel that is doing this very well. Pedro Vidal reached out a couple of months ago on this channel requesting a reverse roast because he was being so successful and he wasn't sure why. The very first thing that strikes the eye when looking at Pedro's channel, aside from it being Spanish if you don't speak Spanish, is that from the very first video, it looks different. It looks higher quality. The thumbnails are simple, and yet the color choices are consistent across several thumbnails, giving it a polished look. And that polished look continues when you click through on a video and see how it's being delivered by Pedro. This channel doesn't look like a brand new channel to me, so if I were writing down a list of the obvious differences on this channel, I would start start with, it looks more polished. Seeing as the audience is here because they want photography advice as well as demonstrations of good photography, Pedro is immediately showing his expertise on those very expectations from the audience and making it obvious for them. So if you are Pedro and you're watching this and you were to say, what should I do about this? I would say, write down a list of the obvious things that are already existing on your channel, but you want to make more obvious. However, we are not out of YouTube algorithm jail yet, because we need to address this next thing. The second major thing keeping your channel in YouTube algorithm jail is this. Your videos aren't satisfying to experience yet. The words viewer satisfaction are often spoken by people on the YouTube team, especially when they talk about how the algorithm works. They're trying to track viewer satisfaction to determine which videos should stand out and which ones shouldn't. And if I were to distill down what I consider to be the definition of viewer satisfaction, it would be this. If A, the audience gets the desired result promised from the video, and B, they aren't bored while getting it. So how do you measure your own channel while we're moving from jail to out of jail? Here is what I would be asking myself. Did I boop the like button? What the heck? How did the boop the like button get in there? Nah, I'm just kidding. The real thing is over here. The real question is, how satisfying is it for my audience to experience my content? If someone didn't know you before being invited to experience your content, would they choose to do so if they weren't being paid? Does my content fulfill the result that an audience member would be looking for when they arrive at that video? So while we're doing this, these are some things that I would be focusing on to get out and make sure I stay out of algorithm jail. How can I share the same thing that I'm already sharing in my video in slightly less time? We're not looking for everyone to become the next Mr. Beast, nor am I suggesting that you pare down every one of your videos just down to the micro moments of most interest. Say that 10 times fast. But rather, every time I've invited a client to do this type of activity, it usually results with the person getting clearer on what the most interesting moments of that video actually are. And most of the time, if you shift yourself gradually towards capturing the most interesting moments for the footage and the content of your videos, it will only be a net positive and lead to a much more satisfying experience for audience members. Next, I would be asking myself, how can I share the same thing but with more demonstration? This is important because engaging more of the senses leads to people being less distracted while trying to consume your content. And less distraction means higher average view duration and average view percentage, which is one of the factors that the algorithm uses to determine whether your content is satisfying or not. And third, I'd be looking at the technical aspects of your content, meaning the lighting, the audio, the quality, with the main purpose here being, as a baseline, we're at least not distracting from the content of the video because of how poor quality it is. And from there, moving up the scale into creating a masterpiece, if so desired. And in order to demonstrate this, I wanted to show you an example of another audience member who also requested this, the Shieldry. This channel focuses on creating your own medieval items. So what the Shieldry is doing so well here is they're tapping into a satisfying viewer experience by demonstrating the process of producing these interesting medieval items. Because they're actually going through and using the original materials as much as possible to produce these items, they are creating the type of experience that an audience member that either wants to know how to do it themselves or are just interested in other people, watching other people do it themselves, wants to watch. And yes, at the end of every video, they have a big reveal showing the final product, which is the payoff for that experience. So if you were the Shieldry channel, what would you be doing right now? I'd be suggesting this. First, distill what you're delivering in your content in a bit less time. This same experience of crafting a medieval targe shield replica could be delivered in a bit less time. In this case, it's 36.5 minutes long. I'll bet you this same video could be delivered in about 25 minutes. And definitely this would need to be judged case by case, but having watched this video all the way through, that would be my recommendation. I would also make a focus on the lighting in the workshop. Where it's a bit dim, it would definitely be benefited by making the lighting just a bit better to make each section notification pop more. I am creating a project right now that I think you will want to know about when it is released. And while I don't want to give too many details right now to avoid spoiling the surprise, let's just say it has to do with you becoming an expert in your space on YouTube much more quickly. And I want to show you how I would do it. So here's what I'm going to recommend you do. You go to radicalyt.com and you scroll down to this section and go ahead and join this Radical Creators group where I will be sharing the updates on what's happening with this project, as well as in the future first dibs on roasts or data videos. Thank you for doing that. Let's move on to the next thing that keeps you in algorithm jail, and that is this. Your content appears dull. Now, the definition of dull here is not just it seems boring or when they watch a video it's boring. It's more that when they are presented your video, it doesn't seem appealing to them. If the YouTube algorithm gives your audience an impression for your piece of content and it appears dull to them, they're going to pass up on it. They're going to move on and not want to experience it in the first place. So here's how I would measure this journey from YouTube algorithm jail over to being free with this. Do people want your video before watching your video? Or put another way, if they were a neutral third party who hadn't heard of you before, but yes, they were in your niche, when presented with the title and thumbnail or the packaging of your video, would they find it interesting? You see, the thing here is you are acquiring your own algorithm mind while you're preparing your videos. In fact, I want you to think of it this way. If the YouTube algorithm's job is to try to predict what will be interesting to audience members before they watch it, and then observe their behavior while they're watching it and after watching it, wouldn't it make sense for you to also do the same thing? In fact, what if you made it a study to acquire the skill sets to understand pretty accurately what your audience will find appealing before they even watch it? One of the simplest ways I would recommend to get out of this algorithm jail and stay out by making sure your videos are staying appealing is by taking notes. Yes, just as simple as when a video performs well, pay attention to the impressions and the click-through rate on it and try to answer this question. What was different about the packaging on this piece of content that could have made it more appealing for the audience? Very rarely are we able to pinpoint with exact accuracy the exact factor that led to that higher appeal versus another video. So we're not directly going for that with this. Rather, we're trying to understand the little nuances that create an appealing piece of content, the packaging on it, versus a not so appealing or a more dull piece of content. And that is something that I see this channel doing exceptionally well. Also an audience member who gave me permission to review their channel in the comments. The channel is Scoobs and Pets. I have high hopes for this channel. They're doing some really good stuff. With one of the major things being, I can tell that the creator of this channel is making a concerted effort to make the packaging of their videos seem appealing. In fact, for many of these thumbnails, if we were to take a rule book of step by step, and I've talked about this previously on my channel, but step by step, what are the core rules that make a good thumbnail? The simplicity, using an arrow pointing to something interesting, reducing the amount of words, focusing on the most interesting thing. Scoobs and Pets is absolutely focusing on these things. Where I think we need to go with this, and if your Scoobs and Pets or your channel is similar, is this. Right now, this channel is playing an odd middle game between a tutorial style of channel and a vlog style of channel, especially with the titles of the videos themselves. We have one video, how to care for freshwater African butterfly fish. Sounds like a tutorial. The next video is feeder crickets escaped and took over my house. I think what's going on here is we're sending mixed signals with the packaging of the videos. So one video might be appealing to one audience, but then the very next video would be appealing to a different audience. Improving the continuity of the packaging of the videos to make it more and more appealing to a core audience will bring this entire channel up. And with that, when you do these three things, you can work your way out of the YouTube algorithm jail permanently because your videos are so valuable and satisfying for an audience that the algorithm can't help but spread them. Every indicator that is pointing the YouTube algorithm to whether or not they should spread your videos are in place as you're doing this. Thank you.